my pleasure to introduce my dear friend Tom Baker. And Tom has been preaching here since going back to the early 90s. He was a priest when he first came here with the Catholic Church. And he left the Catholic Church and left the biggest church in the world to become a minister in the smallest church in the world. And Tom told me that if you're a Catholic priest, you can always do part-time work afterwards. But if you join another church, you can't become ordained in another church, you can't do that. So Tom really made a clean cut, you see, from his 10 years he spent with the Catholic Church. Tom tells me that he always writes out every word that he's going to speak. So he makes it look so easy, but he does a lot of hard work in preparation. This man, I've never known anybody who is so involved with service to others as Tom Baker. Come on up, Tom. Let's all enjoy your talk. Good talk, my friend. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I almost made an announcement when the announcements were around, and I'd like to make the announcement that the Course in Miracles will not be meeting this evening because of possible inclement weather and the closing of the roads for the Shamrock. But it sounds like everybody got here. I was expecting maybe 3 people. So it's good to see everybody. That's great. Well, M. Scott Peck wrote a book years ago called The Road Less Traveled. Probably remember that book. And the very first line of the book says, "Life is hard." That's the beginning of the book. But it's also the beginning of our lives. We struggle in the womb, we try to get out, we bang our heads against the walls, and finally we come out into this sterile environment with all these doctors and people and noise, and they put this stuff in our eyes that are supposed to help, but just hurts. And it's like being met at the airport by nobody. In my psychotherapy practice, I often begin therapy with the acknowledgement that the person's life has been hard. And sometimes people cry, just thinking about their life. It's been tough. Edgar Cayce states outright that Earth is a school in which we learn patience and other hard lessons. Other mystics and psychics have concluded that Earth is a severe school. As a student of A Course in Miracles, I see life as a journey from fear to love. But it's a journey of experiencing the fear and pointing to the love. I don't know about you, but my life has been surrounded by love, but I often haven't taken it in. I often haven't breathed it in. In that journey from fear to love, we learn that criticism and judgment impact people in severe ways and should be replaced by encouragement and a joyful curiosity about the other. That's really my message today. Treat each other with joy and kindness and love. Just when you sang that song, it was like kindness meets us in the garden. Joy meets us in the garden. It's right here for us. And yet we often don't see it. It is in my role as marriage counselor that I have learned most about people and the power of love to overcome our negativity with one another. In most marriages, how many of you are married? Okay, we got a bunch of married people here. How many of you have been married? Okay, so almost everybody has experienced this ecstatic state of being, marriage. My tongue is only halfway in my cheek. In most marriages, people move from an ecstatic fantasy about the other. You're amazing. You're the most extraordinary person I ever met. You just, I'm nothing when I'm without you or away from you. We think, oh, this person, the Messiah has come at last. I am saved. And then you get married. And there's a disillusionment. They weren't all that great. Or there are periods in which they're not all that great. And that's when the criticism starts, the critique. So we have a long period of accepting and appreciating the person as they are, rather than as we have made them up to be. In all marriages, the fantasy of the person and the reality of the person meet. And then they come to see me. Yes. So I have come to think, what makes life hard is not the weather, it's not conditions, it's here. It's our own thinking. It's our reaction to our own fears and insecurities in the form of judgments, critiques, and punishments, and all sorts of attacks on others that are simply feeble attempts to be superior. Let me emphasize the word feeble. They are feeble. There's little attempts to be better than the other person, to be right rather than to love. It's what tortures us. And we've got to stop it. Thank you very much. No, there's more to it than that, isn't there? Let me give you an example of myself. Because I have a deep desire in me. It's my shadow side, but I have a deep desire in me to be special, to be better than, to be smarter than, taller, happier, more joyful, more devout. And around this time, when the Pope is sick, I have a fantasy. And my fantasy is to be elected the Pope. Now, I realize my past in the Catholic Church has been spotty. In fact, I left the Catholic Church. But I still imagine every time the Pope is sick that I will be picked out by the Holy Spirit to be the Pope. And I can imagine myself up on the balcony giving the Ubi et Orbi blessing to the world. And there's a little boy and his father standing in the crowd. And the son says to his father, "Oh, Papa, Someday I want to be just like Papa Tommaso. Papa Tommaso Bakerini. And his father says, "Ah, Guido, there's no one like Papa Tommaso." I'm glad you're laughing. Yet at the end of the day, I would simply be what I am. An old man with a big imagination. Like the Wizard of Oz in borrowed vestments, playing a part designed to make him amazing. You know, there is a quiet glory in being ordinary. It's a quiet glory. It's not a Mardi Gras glory. It's quiet, and it's wonderful. It's cozy. Just to be the person that you are and look at other people and say, "I'm like you and you're like me." Now, despite our shadow side, we are amazing. We're crude, we're selfish, and we're amazing. We are made in the image of God. Love created us like itself. We are angels dressed in beggars' rags. Each of us is Jesus in his crucified disguise, as Mother Teresa used to say. We all have a deep dignity in us. If you think about it, all Mother Teresa did was help people retain their dignity after they had lost everything and were dying. She's been a teacher to me in that a lot of our work here in the Severe School is to help people retain their dignity in impossible situations. And we're all kind of quietly nodding at that, thinking of when we will need help going to the toilet, or we will need help hearing, or being understood, or even being noticed. We all think of that moment where we might get Alzheimer's, where we can't think anymore, when we must rely on the mercy of strangers. That's there in many of our experiences. I heard about a minister who was speaking to a group of seniors. Now, this is gross, by the way. I want to really warn you. I heard about a minister who was speaking to a group of seniors in a nursing home when a woman lost control of her bowels. Can you imagine anything worse? The minister stopped and looked at the woman and said, "Most people listen to me and think to themselves that I am full of shit. You have demonstrated what all of you were thinking. Thank you. Now all of us help clean up our dear one and restore her dignity." The work of the kingdom is sometimes in the sewer. And sometimes the work of the kingdom takes place in a conversation. Last week I saw a woman for counseling. Afterwards she told me how much I had helped her, and I was a bit baffled. I said, "Well, all we did was talk," which is all I do, "and listen." And that's what she said. "Yes, we talked, but you listened." That made all the difference. That always makes all the difference. When we argue, when we attack another, we don't listen to them. We're not interested in what they're saying. We're interested in being right and being superior. The ego says, people need a good talking to. I would say, the Spirit says, people need a good listening to. We need desperately to be listened to know that what we say has value, has wisdom, and often great humor. People often come to me with ultimate questions. This makes me feel superior when they do that. Like, how can I become enlightened? Or how can I be happy? Or what's the key to a happy marriage? My answer to these questions is always the same. Treat everyone like you would treat Jesus in his crucified disguise. That's each one of us. And treat yourself like a baffled but curious angel, because that's what we are. Do this, and things will improve. Thank you.